as this will be my last video of 2025, I wanted to do a recap of the whole year, and especially the fourth quarter is absolutely just massive. Just to give you an idea, the three most important news for me personally of the whole year were all happening in the fourth quarter, which is kind of crazy, and in general the fourth quarter was just absolutely nuts. But yeah, I'm gonna do a whole year recap and let's see what happened during the year for Aduro. So as always, the ticker symbol is ADUR on the Nasdaq, and I am an investor in the company, so will be biased. So yeah, I'm gonna look at the whole year quarter by quarter, and yeah, again, especially the fourth quarter, stick around to see how absolutely insane it is. I'm not just saying it for clickbait, but genuinely the fourth quarter is just massive news. So yeah, but the other quarters were kind of decent as well, so we're gonna look at them step by step. So let's do the first quarter first. So in the first quarter, Aduro outlined their strategic goals for 2025 with these three pillars: technological development. So they promised to deliver and commission the NGP pilot plant by early Q4, by early Q3. And yeah, you could say delivery and commissioning, this is all like interpretation, what this exactly means. But you could say the NGP pilot plant as of late Q3 was starting commissioning and all the physical pieces were in place. So would this count? Would this not count? I don't know. But the pilot plant at least actually exists and is currently, I would say, in the more advanced stages of commission. Initiate detailed design of the scale-up demonstration plant. This definitely happened, as we're gonna see later on in the recap. Commercial program, accelerate and expand customer and industry partner engagements. We definitely seen that with the plastic waste recycling, an additional partner being announced publicly, and with bitumen upgrading, we don't know what happened behind the scenes, but as far as I know, there were no public announcements. And intellectual property, expand just more patents. We saw that as well. So let's look at the first quarter in more detail. So just gonna go through it chronologically. So on January 14th, Dr. Arturo Gomez was appointed as the vice president of engineering. Interesting fact. I don't know how impactful it is, but obviously, as this was the time where the pilot plant was being designed and they had to order all the long lead equipment. I think this was a good moment to hire someone who focuses on the engineering part. On January 17th, Aduro rang the closing bell at Nasdaq. Not really super impactful for the actual chemistry or the technology part, but this was shortly after Aduro uplisted to the Nasdaq in November, so this was just a confirmation that Aduro is now among the bigger players and is now trading at an exchange which most investors of the world can easily access. On January 23rd, Aduro completed the basic engineering design phase of the pilot, so I would assume that's why they hired a vice president of engineering, because after the design phase comes obviously the whole detailed construction phase, etc. So on January 30th, they got a US patent for a novel process design for effective implementation of the HTT technology that will be used in a pilot. So we didn't have any details of what exactly was included in a patent, but Aduro assured us that this was important for the pilot. So that's what it is. On February 27th, Niha Nassar was appointed as the vice president of finance. I personally don't know really what exactly this will impact or what this really changed, but as you're gonna see later on, we did like two significant capital raises in the year, and I mean he probably played a major role in that. On March 6th, Deborah Capital, as the very first investment firm, initiated coverage of Aduro with a $50 per share price target. So it is the first investment house, analyst, whatever, initiated on Aduro. And as we're going to see later, this is the same company that pretty much assisted Aduro with all their capital raises. And as far as I know, it was also the company that helped them raise the money in 2024 when they went public on the Nasdaq, or uplisted to the Nasdaq, I should say. On March 13th, they signed a memorandum of understanding with NextGen Polymers, which is a company focused on plastics logistics. So, where do you get the feedstock? Where do you sell, your product? All these type of things that what this company is focusing on, and they signed a MOU for the demo plant, which shows you that, as early as March 13th of 2025, they were already preparing things for the demo plant, which is, a lot of foresight, and I think is pretty great to see. So, Q1, I think, was pretty nice. What can we say? Was not a super mega exciting quarter, was a quarter where they, started with more steps towards the pilot plant, expanded their management team a little bit, got more coverage, and signed this MOU preparing for the demo plant. So yeah, that was Q1. Let's get right into Q2. So on May 1st, Aduro engaged Siemens for the advanced automation for the pilot plant, which is, Siemens is a really, really big player in all the machines, tooling, etc. And getting them already for all the automation stuff for the pilot plant is, I think, great, especially because, the pilot plant is, insofar, I think, by far the most critical piece of the whole existence, let's just say. Because, the pilot plant is actually just a very small commercial plant. So as you see here, Siemens is already engaged in a pilot plant, and, this will be pretty much the same routines that will be run in a commercial plant. So already we got like some testing of all these like parts. It just shows you that the pilot plant is just very, very important. On May 8th, Aduro signed a memorandum of understanding with Clean Farms, which in detail, they are planning a commercial pathway for challenging agricultural plastics. So this is like, drainage pipes or plastics that's used to wrap up like hay bales or something like that. And, all of those plastics are, typically contaminated with some types of like, waste. That's not just plastic, but some biological waste, let's just say. And, that's very difficult for, let's say, the typical plastics recycling technologies to handle. But Aduro can do it. So Clean Farms from Canada signed a memorandum of understanding with them, which is obviously great, that just shows you, especially that they are focusing on developing a commercial pathway. And as we're going to see later on, this has been, I would say this is like one of the main, 2025 pillars that Aduro really focused on getting with partners that will focus on commercial stuff, not just, let's do like a science experiment or like some academic experience. No, they're just focusing on companies or organizations that are interested in actually focusing on the commercial side, because we all want to make money. Aduro wants to make cash. We as investors will also benefit a lot if Aduro actually starts making cash and signs actually deals with money involved and not just talk. So I think this is great. May 21st, Aduro engages Delphi to conduct a lifecycle assessment of their tech. I'm not going to go into detail what exactly that is, because in next week's video we will dive. This will be one part which we will dive a little bit deeper into the lifecycle assignment. So stay tuned for next week. On June 11th, Aduro closed their first raise of the year, which was a all in all $9.2 million raise at 8.44 per share, so $8.44. And the people that were engaged in the raise also got half a warrant at 10.13. Again, for me, it's very impressive that Aduro can get away with only offering half a warrant, because like in many micro caps, they have to offer like half a warrant, maybe like at even like prices close to the share price. So the price here difference is not that high, but that Aduro still can get away with only offering half a warrant just shows you that the interest is really there for the raises. And as the final event on June 26th, David Weizenbach appointed as Chief Operating Officer, so obviously a pretty major position, and we'll have to see how it goes, but so far it seems pretty good. All right, let's go to the next quarter. And before we do that, please check if you're subscribed. This really helps me out with the content, and thank you so much if you're already subscribed. All right, third quarter. So third quarter was pretty thin. There's just no other way to say it. It was not a lot happened really in the third quarter. So that's why it was so surprising that the fourth quarter was absolutely insanely massive. The calm before the storm, let's just say. So July 31st, successful initial testing of synthetic turf waste as feedstock for HCT. So as you might know, Aduro is not only experimenting with, like we saw, agricultural waste, plastic waste, not only with, let's say, waste in normal, let's say household waste plastics, but also in synthetic turf. So this is like, let's say, the fake grass on like fake grass on soccer fields, for example, which use which are plastics based and are multi-layered and combined with dirt, etc. So it's pretty rough to recycle, and Aduro actually tested that yes, they can handle this type of stuff. And on August 14th, they completed their site preparations for the pilot plant, which was also great to see. Obviously, I think they were planning to get this done maybe a little bit earlier, by like early Q3, but the fact is that it actually happened, and I'm pretty happy about that. So as you saw, Q3 was pretty only 2 notable events. And from this point on, there were announcements about the pilot plant, the current state of the pilot plant, or we completed this and this. I'm just going to leave those out because we don't have like concrete dates when certain events happened. We just have like announcements. So from here on out, imagine just the pilot plant being continuously commissioned, because commissioning started in like late Q3. So I'm just going to skip all of that because, even skipping that Q4 is so insane. Like I mentioned, like the 3 most massive events of the whole year all happened in the fourth quarter. And even the non-major 3 events were also like crazy. So let's dive into Q4. And we're also going to dive way, way deeper into a lot of the announcement, because they were the major announcement. All right, let's dive into Q4. So already the first event, October 9th, demo plan site selection starts. So, Aduro is really serious about the pilot. Is not even really fully completed, and they're already looking for demo plan sites, which was great to see. And, less than, a month later, demo plant extruder engineering trials. So it shows you again, we're focusing on the demo plant already, because, Aduro sees the pilot plant as already like foregone conclusion that this will work. But obviously investors, as you see from the stock price, yes, in 2025, the stock price of Aduro about doubled. So, pretty good from price appreciation. But I think really investors are still really asleep at the wheel, because they still doubt that the pilot plant will work, right? Obviously, I don't know if it will work, but it seems, it seems like management is extremely confident about the pilot plant. Let's just say that. So yeah, then we have, this was an absolutely massive event, but even though it's not one of the major 3, but just shows you how insane the fourth quarter was. November 6th, a non-binding letter of intent signed with for a Netherlands brownfield industrial site for €2 million. So that's pretty much shows us that, if all their background checks, etc., go as planned, Aduro already has a plan for a location for the demo plant, but not only just a location, it's already a constructed building. It already has like electricity, water connections, etc., and even has like some industrial equipment left over from the last tenant, which they can reuse, because as you might remember, Aduro's pilot plant uses commercial equipment. They don't use specialized prototype equipment that you have to custom make. No, they use default industrial equipment, and we have some of them left over in that site. And yeah, I think this is a very, very big event. I was thinking about assigning this as a major event, but I think it's just barely not a major event, because it's just a letter of intent. It's not a final agreement that they will actually buy that site. But great to see that we already pretty much have confirmation that they really want to be in the Netherlands. We'll have to see, I guess. As far as I know, we expect news in January or February about if they actually going to buy the site or not. So now we come to the first major, one of the 3 major announcements of the whole year, and this happened on November 20th. It was a successful pilot scale steam cracking of non-treated HCT output. It was likely by Technip, the market leader in the space. And we're going to dive quite deep into this topic right now. Don't be scared. I'm not going to bore you with chemistry details, etc. But I think what this really shows is that Aduro's output can be straight plugged into a plastics factory, produce more plastic. That's really, it proves that they don't need after treatment, which is absolutely massive. And you might not really care what the customer does with the product that Aduro sells them, but I think this is important to note, because as far as we know, I'm just going to explain it in a little bit more detail. Again, don't be scared if it looks a little bit intimidating. I'm just going to explain everything quite quickly and short and understandably. So this NAFTA is going to be, if things go as expected, this is going to be the main product that Aduro will sell in the beginning. So if you're looking for cash flow, we really want to learn about what the customers do with the NAFTA to see if it's actually, going to be a desired product or if it can be replaced or not. So it's going to be bio-naphtha in this case, which just means it was produced from waste and not from fossil fuels. All right, I'm going to just quickly step through the steps, and I'm going to show you how exactly the steam cracking works, which the first step is simply taking naphtha, combining it with steam and heating it up quite a lot for a very, very short amount of time. This cracks the long hydrocarbon chains into smaller molecules that will be used in the later reactions. Then in step 2, this will be simply cooled down so we don't have unwanted products created. So you'll pretty much heat it up really, really quickly, and then you quickly cool it down. In the third step, it goes into a quench tower and a compressor where it's cooled down and then compressed. So yeah, pretty simple. In the fourth step, the compressed gas is pretty much washed to remove impurities. Also pretty simple. In a dryer, all the ice and water is being removed because the next step is being performed at very, very low temperatures. So we don't want water in the stream so it doesn't clog up the system. And now the next step is, I think these steps 6 to 9 are the most interesting ones because it shows us what exactly is generated from Aduro's naphtha. So the naphtha goes in, this is all the pre-processing stuff, and now the real stuff happens, right? Where we're gonna see that what comes in as naphtha is being cracked into these 4 separate streams. So this stream, the C4 plus stream, contains the heavy hydrocarbons, so chain length 4 and above. Like butadiene, I don't even know how to pronounce it correctly, but it's creating heavier hydrocarbons, which, for example, this butadiene is, for example, used to manufacture synthetic rubber for car tires. So not the most expensive or desirable product, but still has a use. This tail gas here is mostly methane and hydrogen, which both gases have quite a lot of energy in them, so they can be piped straight into the furnace to burn and save on costs pretty much. Yeah, these two, the number 8 and number 9, are the most important parts that are created that actually have the value. So the C2 splitter splits out the chain length 2 molecules. And this is ethylene, for example, ethylene and ethane. Ethane is pretty much recycled back into the furnace to be burned. But the ethylene is used to create polyethylene, PVC, PET, which are, major plastic types. And as you might know, Aduro will be focusing on the PE recycling. So, the things that are produced from Aduro's output can be turned into polyethylene, which can then be used by a consumer, and then again recycled by Aduro into more naphtha, which can then again be cracked into more PE. And, it's circular economics, right? That's not only do you save money, you do, you have to extract less fossil fuels. It's generally considered cheaper. And, when you sell the product that's recycled, you can put on a label, made from 100% recycled plastics, right? Everyone loves that, and consumers love that, and I think it's great for the environment, and the government might give you a subsidy for that and give you carbon credits, right? And the second stream is the C3 stream, which you can make polypropylene, polyurethane, and acrylics from it, and polypropylene is also another major plastic type. I would say. Polyethylene and polypropylene are the 2 major plastic types that Aduro will very strongly focus on recycling. And so again, we have circularity where, the things that are created here can then be used, and then Aduro can take the garbage, recycle it again into bio-naphtha, which can then again be turned into those 2 products. So yeah, I know it was a little bit more details that you might have wanted to know, but I think it's very important because this is going to be the major profit center for Aduro, and to understand what the customers do with it, I think is very important to just build confidence and conviction, right? Because it shows you that what Aduro produces is an actually very, very useful product. It's not just some, side product, or, it's a very, very major input for these steam crackers. All right, I think we talked enough about that. On December 3rd, we had just like 2 weeks later, we had another absolutely insanely massive announcement that we have the second collaborator. As you might remember, the first one was Total Energies in the middle of 2024. And now at the end of the year, we got the actual second collaborator, which is absolutely massive. I've done a separate video about this collaboration because I think this is the most important news of the whole year, because we now have a second collaborator who, together with Aduro, will be focusing on how do we turn this technology integrated into complex supply chains, garbage collection, etc., to produce a commercial revenue stream for both Aduro and Ecose. And I think this is crazy. And again, I did a separate video on it. Check it in the description. But just a very, very short summary here. Ecose is a Mexican nonprofit environmental organization which was created by all the major plastic producers in Mexico. They have entered into a multi-year collaboration to evaluate Aduro's technology as a solution for recycling flexible and mixed plastic packaging. Through this partnership, the organization aims to assess the technical and commercial viability of converting this challenging waste stream into valuable resources to support a circular economy. And the collaboration is expected to begin in January 2026. So again, I really, really like this, where Aduro really started focusing more on getting together with partners who want to do something commercial with it, right? It's not like some university project or something like that. No, we want partners that want to help us make money from, either joint ventures or licensing deals. And I think this is really awesome to see again. I think this is the most important event of the whole year, because we now have two collaborators who actively focus on commercializing the technology on a pretty large scale. I mean, this is the leading, environmental association focusing on plastic in Mexico. And Mexico is a massive country. So definitely the most important event of the year. And as if quarter four wasn't already packed enough, we have the third major announcement of the year, the graduation from the Shell Game Changer program. And I mean, I didn't personally expect that to happen in 2025, but it actually did. And as a reminder, this is what was the state before the announcement. So they started with it more than 3 years ago. In November 2022, they entered the Shell Game Changer program. In September 23, we got an update that they passed the midpoint. So, it took them less than a year to pass the midpoint, and then over 2 years for the second half. This was as of the last financial report, if I'm correct. I'm not 100% on that, but it should be what was the state in the last financial report. So planning and discussions are currently underway to determine project conclusion, followed by an expected formal graduation. So yeah, and what we got in December of 2025 was this announcement that Aduro is pleased to announce a successful graduation from the Shell Game Changer program. This milestone marks the culmination of a multi-year collaboration under Shell's Chemical Decarbonization Innovation Call, an initiative launched to identify and advance emerging technologies with the potential to reduce carbon intensity in the chemical sector, enable circular feedstock pathways. And what's not here in the announcement, that Shell very clearly states that they only let technologies graduate that have a good chance of being commercially viable. You can read it on Shell's website, etc. But this is really not just like some science experiment, but where there is a potential commercial pathway. So I think this is very, very important. And then, as a minor announcement, on December 22nd, should be 22nd, Aduro announced closing of their 20 million, but with the 3 million oversubscription option. So it will likely be $23 million raise at $11.50 USD per share, with half a warrant at $16. So again, this pretty much funds the demo plant. As from prior information, we know that the demo plant is expected to be somewhere in the 10 to 20 million US dollar range. Obviously, it hasn't been confirmed formally, but I think Offer, the CEO, mentioned it in some presentation. So this should fund the whole demo plant and a little bit of runway, which is pretty nice because, as you remember, they already raised like 9 million this year. And now they raised another 23 million likely. And obviously, when warrants are exercised, as you remember, the previous warrants were around like $10 US. So they will also likely be exercised. So there's quite a lot of money coming into the coffers of Aduro. And yeah, I think the future is bright. And 2025 was more of a preparation year, preparing the pilot plant, digesting all the uplisting, integrating, doing a lot more investor relations stuff. But, I think from here on out, every single year is going to be more exciting than the last. 2026 is going to bring us the pilot plant. And yeah, it's going to be great. But, this will be the next video where we're going to look at what's in stock for 2026. So stay tuned for next week's video. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you, guys. I hope, the next year would treat us investors a lot better than 2025, even though 2025 was great. We got a double in the stock. A lot more people got interested in the company. And yeah, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next video or next year. And yeah, thank you guys.